Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine. For the third day in a row, Russian forces launched another ballistic missile strike on the Ukrainian port city of Odesa overnight. And there's word today about Russia using choking agents against Ukrainian troops, breaching the chemical weapons ban, according to U.S. officials. Let's find out what's happening in Ukraine. Joseph Lindsley. Joe, what's the story there?
Little Joe Lindsley.
Joe Lindsley is quickly becoming an American treasure in broadcasting.
Welcome to Ukraine.
Are you in the mountains again, Joseph?
Yes, I'm in the mountains. Yeah, usually the internet is better here than Kharkiv, but maybe not today. I'm in the mountains today in this pocket of peace. But yes, indeed, once again, the Russians, they hit Odesa last night. They targeted...
His internet is breaking up here. The Carpathian Mountains is where Joseph Lindsley is in Ukraine, and let's try to reestablish a connection with him. As I mentioned, there was another strike on Odesa. 14 people injured in that latest attack, and the word is that civilian infrastructure was damaged, in particular post office warehouses. And there has been a fire, and 14 people injured, one hospitalized in moderate condition, they say. And then the story I mentioned when we were just connecting with Joseph, the United States has formally accused Russia of using chemical weapons as a method of warfare against Ukraine and imposed sweeping new sanctions on Russian firms and government bodies. All right, we don't have Joe, so we'll keep...
Can you hear me?
Now we got you back. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Great. I'm not sure what the trouble is. Anyway, I could hear you. And yes, in Odesa, the Russians targeted a Nova Poshta facility. Nova Poshta is a kind of like a UPS, a private company that, within 24 hours, you can send anything anywhere you want within Ukraine for a very cheap price. It's a nice Ukraine success story. And they hit that major postal office with ballistic missiles. In Odesa, which is a continuation of what we've seen there these past days. The Russians are seriously pounding, off in the center of that city. It's a city that, for a long time, people thought that Putin would not want to touch because it is such a beautiful place. But now it seems, the same way that Hitler didn't want to touch Paris. But now it seems that, the Russians realize that the people of Odesa, even though they speak Russian, they insist on being free. Odesa is a very free-spirited place, and they don't want to be under the Russian yoke. And on the chemical score, I've been hearing for a long time, from friends at the front line, that the Russians have been dropping chemicals from drones, and so it's good that this is getting recognized. It's a serious problem. I know people that have gotten sick from that. And meanwhile, Bob, I was reflecting yesterday. We were talking about movies and films. And, I said I don't really watch new films here in the wartime. But there's a British show called The Detectorists that I often have on repeat in the background, especially when I'm in Kharkiv and when there are frequent missile attacks. And the reason why I have it on, it's a very gently dark comedy. So it's substantial, but it's very calm. And it's about a group of friends in England that they go metal detecting to look for ancient treasure. And it's about real people sort of being honest with each other while pursuing this hobby. And they have really great conversations. And it reminds me of so many conversations I have here in the wartime. In fact, with some friends in Kharkiv, we've developed this concept of how war can fix your brain. Because, you're forced to confront such serious problems here. And people are very open about discussing this stuff. And so I have this show on because it sort of reminds me of the conversations I see here in wartime Ukraine, but also in a dark way, in that peaceful show, they're using metal detectors to look for ancient treasure. And in Ukraine, people are using metal detectors to find landmines. And it's a harsh, it's a painful reality of how much of this landscape has been ruined. I also I've been reading a lot, and there's a British writer named Patrick Leigh Fermor, and he was a great adventurer. In World War II, he kidnapped a Nazi general. They made a Hollywood film about it. But in the 1930s, and perhaps I've mentioned this to you before, but in the 1930s, when he was 19, he walked across Europe. And his books about that, the first one is called A Time of Gifts. It's an extraordinary look at, from his mind when he was 19, at what was happening in Europe in the 1930s. You could see the...
Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine, thank you as always, Joe, and I hope you stay safe. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you, Bob. Until tomorrow.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Що він сказав?
Well, which side are you on?
На чиїй ти стороні,
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
на чиїй ти стороні.
Єбать.